Good morning, guys. I made muffins. So good. It's an ancient family recipe, actually, that dates back to a time when bananas were still called slimy little sticks you can eat. 2021, sorry, I'm still chewing. 2021 BVS is definitely a little bit different than 2019 BVS, isn't he? Anyways, on today's episode, I have some photo editing I need to do, and even maybe a little bit of photoshopping. So let's go down to the studio and get to work. Home. Before we jump into it, I should let you know that today's video is sponsored by Squarespace.com. Squarespace is an awesome place to host your photography business website. For example, you can create a members area for your audience, or you can sell your various photography related products like prints and calendars, and you can really easily integrate it all with accounting and e-commerce softwares. Best of all, the beautiful templates at Squarespace make it really easy to build your business website and make it look professional in the process without any serious tech chops. So head to squarespace.com/BrendanVanson for a 10% discount on your first purchase. Okay, over on the computer, this is the first time I've looked at these photos. I have no idea if they're good or not. I want to edit one quick or just show you how important it is to not over edit food photos, I guess. And then I'm going to get into like the Photoshop thing and if I'm actually going to try to Photoshop something. So these are the photos. This is actually the very first one I took. The thing with food photography is I think being subtle is actually okay. I think it's okay not to have a total focus on the coffee and put the focus instead on the lens. I think that's actually kind of cool. That one's kind of focused on the coffee. Okay, so let's just do a tiny quick edit on this. When you're doing food photography, you cannot over edit. If you over edit, the food's gonna look a different color. It's just gonna look wrong. So generally what I tend to do is I try to get the white balance right away. And to do that, I'll do the vibration and saturation all the way to the top. And now you can kind of see up in this histogram up here, and also in the image, what the light balance looks like. See this gray on the Nikon looks a little bit purplish. That tells me it's a little bit too purple, a little bit too magenta. And then it also, in the white milk, it looks a little bit warm or yellow. So to fix this, I'm going to take the little pointer and I'm going to click on the Nikon. That's taking it too far. The Nikon looks good, but everything else looks a little bit yellow. So I'm just going to take this slider and move this until it looks nice and balanced. Up here in the histogram, you see the blues way too far to the left and the yellows too far to the right. That's the warm and cold balance. So I'm going to keep it like this, and then I'm going to bring the vibrance and saturation down, and it should almost look black and white. You see how flat that looks? That's when you've got your white balance right, and that's at least a starting point for your edit. So then now we can do things like bringing the vibrance up. I actually think on food photography, for whatever reason, dehaze looks quite nice, just a little bit. And I also add way more contrast to my food photography. The whites are going to get punched a little bit. Clarity is an interesting thing with food because if you go really sharp, it can look nice, but it also kind of looks a little bit too edgy at times. So I tend to soften a little bit and then add texture. And then I'm going to bring the blacks down just a little bit to add more contrast and bring the shadows out. And then I'm actually going to add some vignetting to the image. And this kind of vignetting puts all the focus on the food. So I've gone full all the way out vignetted. And then I'm going to move the midpoint down. This is one way of doing it. The other way, let's remove this, is if you really want to put the focus on like the drink, for example, is you can go up here to the radial filter and make a radial filter around the coffee. And then basically you can just choose how much like of a spotlight you want to put on that drink. So I'm actually going to do both in this image. I'm going to darken that edge like that. Oh, I had my saturation too high. Let's fix that. I'm actually going to increase the contrast of the edges as well. And so that's kind of an edit that it's not great because the coffee's not sharp, but that's more or less the edit I like to do to my food photos. And then you can kind of, let's just jump through to another photo. This is sort of stuff I did yesterday. I actually kind of like this. It doesn't matter that the food art's not great in the background. It's subtle. And again, basically the edit's going to be the same as it was on the last image, except I'm going to be a little bit lazier. And just do it super quick. I'm actually going to use a grad filter on this to darken the background to kind of take some of the focus away from the background and make it a bit punchy. It looks a little bit yellow, maybe even a little bit green. Yeah, and that's nice. It's not the greatest photo I've ever taken. I suck at food photography, but it works. Now let's get into the photoshopping thing. So I want to find a top-down image. I think that's the only top-down image I have, are the out-of-focus ones. So let's take the one I edited. And what we're going to do is we're going to literally Photoshop coffee art onto the top of this and hopefully make it look natural. But before I do, I actually want to try to chat with my buddies Thomas Heaton, and Greg Snell, because this is an interesting thing. Is it ethical to replace the coffee art on my coffee? It's kind of like the sky replacement argument. But then it's also double ethical or unethical, because if I'm trying to sell my coffee at my coffee shop and I'm using coffee art that I found on the internet, is that unethical? I don't know. Let's talk to them and then we'll jump back here.
Now I've got myself one of these privacy covers. Boom.
Yeah. Is that so when you're watching naughty videos, the world can't see you?
Exactly.
I need one of those. I need one of those. What's up, Greg?
I'm good, man. I've been researching cameras all morning.
Which ones?
Mostly the R6 and the A7S II.
Oh.
Got myself a new camera.
I want to get your take, because last week I asked you if my coffee art was cheating, or my lack of coffee art was cheating, and then obviously I messed up the recording. So I made a coffee with terrible coffee art, photographed it, then photoshopped on something I bought on a stock photography website and put it on top of the coffee. Is that, one, ethical? And two, do you think my coffee shop can use that as advertisement? Go, Greg.
Yeah, it's a two-part question. The first one, is it ethical? I don't know. It depends on who you are as a photographer. If you bought the photo, sure, but it's obviously a composite and not real.
But ethical means lying, so isn't it just
lying?
lying?
I mean, you bought it, right? So I guess to address your second one, could you then sell that photo to market your coffees, or use it to market something that you're selling? Yeah, I guess so. If you bought it, it depends on what the rights are of the photo that you bought. But I don't know. I'll let Tom take that.
Tom, what do you think?
Well, I mean, firstly, I saw you create the most perfect penis I've ever seen in my life on your coffee.
It was an eggplant. It was an eggplant.
Yeah, so why on earth you feel the need to buy stock photography with coffee art when you clearly have it down to a T is beyond me. But
point.
Is it ethical? Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's funny because if a cafe owner, right, who isn't a photographer, obviously all the cafes, takeaways, restaurants, they all use stock photographs, right? Most of them anyway. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. It's done. But it's it comes down to that thing whereby you may actually raise your customers' expectations to a point where they're disappointed when they get your piece of art. Because if you go into a takeaway and you see a photograph of a big fat juicy burger, and then what you get is a soggy mess.
Yeah.
You know, it's always disappointing. I always get disappointed by that. So I think as long as the intention is there and you do plan on improving your coffee art, then there's not wrong with it. It's a cafe. It's a business.
It sounds a little bit like our Tinder profiles before we were taking men. Hey, it was like we had this really beautiful photo of ourselves photoshopped, and women were just wanting that. And then we'd show up to the dates and they were like, no, I ordered something different. Anyways,
I don't know anything about that.
Thanks, guys, for weighing in, and we'll keep chatting for the next little while. But say goodbye to these YouTube guys.
Bye, YouTube guys.
Regardless of what Tom and Greg believe, we're gonna do this right now. We're gonna right-click on the image. We're gonna hit Edit In, and edit in Photoshop. And then I'm actually going to go over to the internets. I'm going to go to shutterstock.com, where I actually have an account. I buy 20 downloads a year or something like that. And I'm going to waste a couple of them on this. So, and just a tip, if you're ever looking for, ideas, stock photography websites are good. If you're going to let's say you're going to the Algarve, Portugal, and you want to have an idea of some shots to make, you can click that and it gives you all sorts of photo ideas. They're not always the greatest ideas or images, but it's a good way of doing it. So if we go latte art, it can give you good ideas as well for things to do. I didn't do this yesterday, and I'm not going to use that as an excuse to why my photo sucked, but it's a good idea. All of these sort of photos here would probably make really good advertisements. I really like stuff like this. The barista holding the coffee cup. This on the cutting board's beautiful. The 3 designs with the beans. Stuff like this is all stuff I can do and will do. On Shutterstock, you can download or buy coffee art. So they've got all sorts of ones like this that you could buy. I'm trying to get ones that are big enough for my photo and ones that are nice enough. I also want them to look realistic, so maybe I'll grab one of these. These ones are probably not realistic enough. I don't want to really promote that. These ones look good, so I'm going to download them. Okay, so now over on whatever this platform's called, Photoshop, we've got our bad coffee art. We're going to take this image in. And then I think this one looks the best. Maybe actually this one. So let's zoom in. And basically there's 1,000 different ways you can do this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this tool, this lasso, click the plus up here, and I'm going to make this quite a bit bigger. And I'm just going to essentially select the coffee art. See how it's created this little line around the edge? Then I'm literally just going to drag this off of that coffee cup and put it on top of mine. And to do this now and make it, why is the color so wrong? Anyway, we'll worry about that later. To make this work, you hit Control T, and then you just stretch and drag it until it fits your cup. Like that. And if you wanted to, it doesn't look unrealistic at all, other than the fact that, that the color balance is way off, and you can make these color balance adjustments after. But if you really want to make it work and make it look a little more realistic, you can zoom in on the image and then take your eraser, make it like opacity 23, and just soften the edges so that it blends better with your coffee cup. But yeah, I've got to do something about this red. So it took me a while to figure out that actually there were different color profiles, and that's why the colors weren't coordinating. But they're coordinating now. I'll show you the result now. I think it looks realistic-ish. I've kind of worked on making it a little bit more out of focus to fit the shot a little bit better using a Gaussian blur. But overall, it looks cool. It looks legit. Whether it's ethical or not is another story. As I was saying to Tom and Greg, in North America anyway, or in Canada anyway, if you're selling a product, the photo has to be made using the exact ingredients you made it with in your shop. I don't know what the rules are here. And I personally have an ethical issue with taking a stock photo and using it for your own marketing, just because I think that you should be able to create art with your own products. And you shouldn't just go into a stock portfolio or stock website and download images. You should hire a photographer to come in and do that for you, or you should hire a barista to come in and do that for you, which I'm going to bring in one of our baristas one of these days and get much better photos. It's a totally different story if you're writing a blog article or you're, just doing general coffee marketing and you need coffee art. Then stock photography is a great place to buy. But I think it's just a little bit dishonest to use other people's work and kind of claim it as your own. So that's just my thought on it. I'd love to know yours in the comments. And I think that's going to be it for today's video. Peace.